Hello and welcome to Tar Heel Teachers at Home. I'm Marlo Artis. I'm the moderator of the program. Tar Heel Teachers at Home is an interview series focused on engaging North Carolinians in conversations around education. Each week, I'm happily joined by a wonderful panel of educators, each one representing a particular subsection of education. We'll start our introductions with our middle school co-host.
Hi, I'm Beth Bartlett-Elmore. I've been in education for 17 years. I've taught at all three levels, elementary, middle school, and high school. I've also served as an athletic director at our local high school, which then I transitioned into the assistant principal role, in which I started at the elementary level, and now I am in middle school. This is my third year as a Midway Middle School's assistant principal in Sampson County Schools.
Awesome. Glad to have you here, Beth.
Hi, my name is Genesky, and I've been in education for 14 years. I'm a proud National Board certified teacher, and I currently teach in Wake County. I'm teaching high school English, and I'm excited to be here. My Twitter handle is @MHS_MRSG.
Awesome. Lauren, we're glad to have you here as well. Thank you for joining us.
Hello, everyone. My name is Tanika Williams, and this is my 19th year in education, and all 19 years have been in the great state of North Carolina. I'm currently the Career Pathways Coordinator in Career and Technical Education in Cumberland County Schools at the central office. Prior to being a CTE coordinator, I was a high school counselor. And then I was also a high school teacher. So I've gone from teacher to counselor and now to coordinator. So I'm excited to be here on this evening, and thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for joining us, Tanika. We really appreciate it. For this episode of Tar Heel Teachers at Home, we are chatting with North Carolina Senator Amy Galey. She is here to discuss a variety of educational topics, including the recently released budget. It was released just about a week ago or so, a little over a week ago. Leandro and more. Please welcome Senator Galey to Tar Heel Teachers at Home.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate this opportunity to connect with you all. And thank you to these teachers who are joining us on this panel for their years of service to the community and to the children. And I'm just really excited to be here and have the opportunity to talk about education in North Carolina.
We're really glad to have you here as well, Dr.
Introduce myself a little bit. My district, I'm from Northern Alamance County. My district is Alamance plus the eastern third of Guilford County. I graduated from Western Alamance High School in 1985. And then I went to Carolina and got my BA and then my law degree. And so I am 100% product of the public school system. Also, my children, I have 3 children, and they all have graduated from public schools, and one is at Appalachian and one is at Carolina, and the oldest graduated from Carolina. So great respect awesome. And for public education and those who make it possible.
That is fantastic. Thank you for sharing that, Senator Galey. So, Senator Galey, we know that you were in session today, and we appreciate you joining us. Are there any late-breaking educational topics that we need to put on our radar based on your sessions that you had with your colleagues today?
No, not from today. We did the cleanup bill for the budget, which was the technical corrections. And so that adjusts some dollar amounts here and there and fixes them and corrects some statutes that weren't right in the original bill. So to make the references accurate. So nothing very exciting, I think, unless maybe you're a nut for reading bills. Here's the budget here. So if you're into that, then you might be excited about a technical correction.
So from your perspective, Senator Galey, what were some of the wins in the budget around education, and what are some of the areas that we still need to address as we continue to provide various educational supports and services to students across the state of North Carolina?
That is a great question, and my answer might be a little controversial because I think some people have looked at the supplements. There's supplements to the 100 counties, except for the 5 are left out and didn't get a supplement. And it's based on 65% from the taxable real property in the county, 25% of the median household income, and then 10% the effective tax rate. And so the 5 counties that did not get the extra supplement are the ones that have the greatest amount of real property wealth already existing in the county, and they also have a higher median average income. So I think that we're going to talk, I think, about Leandro. One of the things that the West Ed report goes into is the disparity in resources between different counties. And I think that is a really, really important conversation to have ongoing in North Carolina. I'm really glad that this budget starts to dig into that question about recognizing that there are inequities between urban counties or rich counties and rural or poorer counties, and also starting to go down a path of trying to figure out, we have the tier system, especially for economic development, but how do we really address those inequalities? And I wanted to bring this to you all tonight that, okay, if you go to the Association of County Commissioners, the North Carolina Association of County Commissioners, they have a page that is dedicated to data about the different counties. And you can look up the wealth base for different counties. So if you took all the real property that's in a county and you add it up, what does that add up to? And then you can look at what's 1 cent on the property tax for that, whatever they levy in that county, what's 1 cent worth. So the #1 county for wealth in the state of North Carolina is Mecklenburg County. If you add up all the real property there, is $186 billion worth of wealth in that county. And 1 cent on their property tax rate is worth $18 million. So they're number one. Number 100 is Tyrell County, and they have a total combined wealth of $464 million. So number 1 is 186 billion, and number 100 is 464 million. That is an incredible disparity. And then the 1 cent on the property tax rate for Mecklenburg is $18 million. For Tyrell, it's $43,000 on 1 cent. And so that's why, I know that that's controversial, that people have thrown out some ideas about what motivated our leadership and the General Assembly to want to exclude those 5 counties. But the truth is that those 5 counties have so much potential for revenue within them, and the bottom counties just don't have it. And so I think it's not necessarily the way I would have, drafted it myself if I was starting from scratch. I think, what is it called? The Public School Forum. They have the listing of all the counties and their relative effort. And I would have gone and, taken maybe some of that to consideration. Orange County, they're still getting the extra supplement. I've seen, what goes on. I live in Alamance, and we compete with Guilford and Orange and Durham and Wake for our teachers. And so I don't think the Chapel Hill Carrboro school system really needed the icing on the cake. They got, the 3 tiers and the icing between the layers already. So I might have allocated that a little bit differently to really try to address those disparities. But that was something that I liked that it was brought up and addressed in the budget, and it is part of the big picture from the Leandro case. Now, something that I would have liked to have seen in the budget that was not, because I think this issue isn't quite right, is a discussion or an attempt to solve the question about the allotment system and public school finance in North Carolina. The West Ed report also deals extensively with the finance situation and how the pots of money are all, completely distinct from one another, and finance officers and superintendents in the state do not have the flexibility to be able to address the situation that they see in their LEA. So I hope, and that is a goal of mine, that is something that I've discussed with Senator Lee and Senator Ballard. I hope that in the years to come that we'll be able to really do something about school finance reform in North Carolina and figuring out how do we have the accountability piece, which I think the allotment system is designed to do, but also have the flexibility for the school systems that desperately need it.
Thank you so much for that, Senator Galey. What questions do we have for Senator Galey?
I'll start. So Senator Galey, I really appreciate, I'm in Wake County, and so that was one of the things that I noticed when the budget was coming out, of being one of those 5 counties. But one of the things that I did also really appreciate was, or that I did appreciate, if I'm not mistaken, you were a supporter for reinstating master's pay for some teachers. I earned my master's degree and I'm not receiving pay for it currently. And so I get really excited every single year when I see that come back into the conversation. And I also have read the research that kind of questions the effectiveness overall. But I was kind of thinking about that, and I wondered what your dream scenario is for that. As a supporter of reinstating master's pay, what is your time in the ideal world? What will that look like for North Carolina? Because I definitely see some overlap with the smaller counties that you mentioned, or the counties that often don't have that supplement, and bringing in master's pay as one of those ways to pull in from that teaching pool that you mentioned.
I think that's a great question. And I think that's the opportunity for us to combine maybe a few different policy objectives into one thing. So instead of saying, okay, at this tier, if you have your master's degree across the state of North Carolina, we're going to give everybody this salary level. I think that instead of looking at it like that, we could tie it into, the difficult to staff schools in the school systems, or in the individual schools that are maybe in areas that are more higher impacted by poverty, that have more serious challenges, where you need an experienced teacher who has that dedication. Sometimes I've observed that those schools tend to get staffed often by people who are fresh out of college, people who don't have as much experience, because maybe some of the older teachers don't see them as being as desirable a job because they have such unique challenges associated with them. So anything that we can do that will help get those teachers into those classrooms where the students really, really need somebody who is experienced and who knows how to do basic classroom management. I think that would be something that I could see supporting.
Senator Galey, thank you so much for the opportunity to be able to talk with you about education. I'm so excited to be a part of this, and to be a voice for our teachers here at Midway. But our concern, well, we have a few little concerns, but we have a whole lot of praise to go along with that. But the question that I have is the plan for veteran teachers. We have several teachers on our staff that are 20 plus years. And we feel like, we're fighting every day. I talked with 2 today. Please don't leave us. At the end of this year, we need you. Our students need teachers like you. In looking at the budget, when you look at the steps between 15 and 25, there are none. It's flat. And then you get 25, and then that's it, because that's just the highest that they can go. And we're talking money. But I think a lot of what our teachers need, especially our veterans, are affirmation, confirmation, a lot of relational, not necessarily pats on the back, but just you're doing a good job, some things like that. So is there any plans? Is there anything that the General Assembly is talking about, in order to help our veteran teachers feel appreciated and to stay in so that they can help teach the younger ones that are coming, mentoring them?
Well, that's a great question. And I have kind of a 2-part answer to it. And I'm not sure either one of them is going to satisfy a veteran teacher, to be honest with you. But I'm a straight shooter, and I just, I'll speak the truth in love, right? So one thing is that the budget has a lot of resources allocated to the state employee health plan and to the retirement system. And so those are things that teachers are not going to see in their pocket right now. but especially for a veteran teacher, you look at your person who's just out of college. What's the chances of, this teacher in the first 3-5 years that they're going to make it to a career where they actually earn a retirement through public education? I'm not sure that they are. And so these investments in the retirement system and in the health plan are really, I think, designed to help the veteran teacher who is looking at retiring pretty soon, relatively soon, and is going to need that those health plan resources. So that would be number one. And then number two is that it's there's policy balances that I think take place. So I personally look at taxpayer money as being finite and discrete, and there's not an unlimited supply of it. And so I think, and I use this analogy when in Alamance County, I was a county commissioner, and we were talking about, or thinking about, are we going to increase our teacher supplement and our operating support to the school system, or are we going to invest in bonds and update our buildings and make sure that they're clean and safe and mold free and don't have roofs that leak? And I said then that, okay, if I have $1 and I'm going to go to the drink machine, I can get a Coke or I can get a Pepsi. I can't get a Coke and a Pepsi, right? So you can either invest in operating expenses or you can invest in capital. If you have a finite pool of money, then it's only you got to make choices. And, this is my first term in the General Assembly. And so I haven't been part of the conversations that have taken place in the past. I think that there is a policy question. Do we attract new teachers to the profession who hopefully are going to see it as a career? And we have to compete for those very bright young people. We have to compete with, private employers who can offer a lot of pay, a lot of benefits, maybe live someplace super cool. Or are we going to invest in our veteran teachers? And I think that that's a legitimate policy debate that has been weighed out. And at least for the time being, I think it's been weighed out in favor of attracting people to the profession in the hopes that they'll stay on, and attracting the best and the brightest to the profession. I will also say, this would be my third point, is that I haven't just heard this from the teachers since we passed this budget. I had a very long and interesting conversation with somebody who works in probation and parole about how he's essentially working for free until he can get retirement, until he checks out after 33 years. And the person who takes his job is going to make $6,000 more than he did. As the day that he retires, the person who takes his place is going to make $6,000 more than him. And because of the changes in the STEP program, there are people in his office who report to him who don't make as much. Who make more than he does. And I can understand how that's a real problem. And I also remember speaking with our superintendent in Alamance County about, having the minimum wage as being $15 an hour, which we did in our state budget, which I think is great. But the problem with that is that then you have hourly paid employees who make more than salaried employees, who have fewer job responsibilities, and actually their paycheck is bigger. So those are there's a lot of nuance to that. And I think it's really, really regretful that a veteran teacher would feel unappreciated or feel like, I've done all this for all these years and people don't care. Because I think that, for one, the faces on your students, I think, would tell you how much you're appreciated and how much people care. And for two, I wish there was all the money that could be to meet every need or to meet every, legitimate question that comes up. I wish it were.
Okay.
So I don't know. That's probably not the answer that a person would want, but I'm not here to sugarcoat it or to,
No, but you're right. You're right. Students do bring a whole lot of satisfaction. And they do help us a lot when it comes to appreciation because they appreciate it. And I think sometimes the veteran teachers look at the money, and really teaching is not about money. People need money to live, but if we're here for the money, we're in the wrong profession anyway. There's many things that people can do to make more money. So really it's just about, there's so many things on our staff right now. Everybody's covering for everybody. And so I guess the veteran teachers sometimes, especially when raises come out, because that's when their ears perk up, what are we getting? Well, it's not about all of that. But, I didn't know if there's something that we can do. I mean, I know what we do in our building for our teachers, especially our veterans, to make them feel appreciated, all of them at this point. But if there was something else maybe in the works.
Yeah. Well, money ain't nothing either. It's nice to be able to treat yourself to something that you've been looking forward to. Money is important and it does help people to feel appreciated. I wouldn't try to, gaslight somebody by saying, it's just a paycheck. Well, yeah, that's a big thing. That's a big deal. So,
and Senator Galey, I think some of the argument too is that, our state, we have a surplus with our budget in terms of in our reserve. And so that's why I think some educators are thinking, can we provide some additional support for veteran teachers because we do have that surplus?
That's a great question. And I've got something on this desk somewhere that addresses that. I think actually it's in this, you were asking me what we did in session tonight. And in this technical corrections bill, it goes through and says what is actually left over at the end of the budget and what the figure is. And after you take out, you got fund balance, you got reserve fund balance, you got unreserved fund balance, and the unappropriated balance remaining, it looks like for fiscal year 2021-22 is $2.3 billion. And then for the next year, the biennium is $21 million. So that might sound like an awful lot, $2.3 billion. But when you talk about all the people across the state of North Carolina, and you talk about corrections officers and highway patrolmen and teachers and, K through, not just K through 12, but, Smart Start, DSS, needs the health department, all of that. I think that the state isn't quite as flush as people think that it is, because this budget spends a lot of money, makes a lot of investments.
Mm-hmm.
Senator Galey, thank you again for joining us on this evening. And I really am excited to be here. And I appreciate all that the legislator was able to accomplish with this budget. Speaking from a Cumberland County perspective, we are a Tier 1 county. So that means that according to the North Carolina Department of Commerce, we are one of those tier county that is one of the most economically distressed counties in the state of North Carolina. So the budget did afford us with some wins when it came to our district, particularly with Fayetteville State University and how now our one historically Black college and university that is within our city now is a part of the North Carolina Promise Schools, the budgets that went forth for our community college. And those are a lot of our local partners. So we really work hand in glove with our local institutions as a public school unit. Some of the other wins that we saw, even from a career and technical education perspective, in addition to the CTE bonus program for teacher performance, we also were able to see a reoccurring investment in credentialing opportunities for our students. So when we look at earlier, you were addressing the economic development to address inequalities that exist, and then looking at the perspective of as a Tier 1 community in the state of North Carolina and looking at those equities. Some of the argument that some people are making about the budget when it comes to shortfalls are the deep income tax credits or tax cuts that typically benefit or seem to benefit the higher end economics as well as corporations. But in CTE, it would seem like those corporations would work for our benefit in trying to prepare our students and using those credentials in order to do that. Can you speak to the corporation aspect, and then also to looking at our budget allocation system and the flexibility, because we want to be able to train our students, but we can't do things like provide them with paid internships. We can't pay them out of our state budget funds. And that's also going to affect some of our summer programming that we have to put on this summer again to address those learning gaps. So I wanted you to really focus in on the corporations and how that works when it comes to the educational piece and the budget, and where we can see those two components intersecting.
Gosh, that is a lot to unpack. And I'm happy to try to do it. The first thing I want to do is, you mentioned in there that tax cuts on, I guess, on personal income tax, people perceive them as primarily benefiting high wage earners. And I wanted to mention that in this budget, it's the opposite, that the minimum amount that you have to earn before you pay income tax is raised to over $25,000. I think it's $25,500. I could be wrong about that exact figure, but I think that's right. So you have to make $25,500 before you even start to pay personal income tax. And that was done to tie it into the federal income tax rate so that they would align. And that is a huge benefit. So I really, really want to emphasize to everybody listening, we think about the income taxes from a federal perspective, and we listen to the rhetoric coming out of Washington. Nobody even knows what to believe about what happens in Washington anymore. You hear one side saying it's the worst, the other side saying it's the best. Who even knows? Well, I can tell you that in North Carolina, for this budget, that making income tax reform available across the board, but especially for low income earners, was a huge priority. And we did that by raising that exclusion. So that's really important to me. Another thing, so you're asking about tying in business recruitment to how does that benefit public education? Well, I can think of quite a few ways, but one of them is the property tax rate. So when a company comes in and they invest, say they come to Alamance County, because that's what I'm more familiar with, and we get a UPS facility and they're going to invest $100 million. And yeah, they might get a property tax incentive to come, but over time, they're going to be paying property tax on that $100 million investment. And the amount of resources that they need from county government, from the school system, is a lot lower than that, because UPS, that facility, while they're paying this huge amount in property taxes, the facility doesn't have children that it sends to school. They don't have breaking entering problems. They don't have domestic violence program problems. They don't have, a big demand on law enforcement within the facility. There may be some of the people who work for it, who knows where they live. They might have problems, or they might have property tax or children in the public school system. They might have other kind of issues, need DSS services, need health department services. But when you bring industry in, it elevates your property tax base, and it ultimately reduces the burden on everybody. And so that would be, I'll go back to the total base of Mecklenburg County, $186 billion. Durham County is $44 billion in property tax base, real property value there. So that's one reason that it's important to attract businesses, because they invest in the community by paying property taxes, which then can be used to build the infrastructure of the schools that's needed, to get rid of the mold, to fix the leaky roofs, to put the fresh paint on the walls, to make sure the children have the desk and the basic equipment and the teacher has the smart boards and the basic equipment that they need to be able to execute their lesson plans. So that's one thing. Another thing is, the CAP program, where you have the apprenticeships that you see. I know that Guilford County and Alamance County both have partnered with local manufacturers to help high school students get internships in those businesses and be trained. And so then when they graduate, they have a good paying job already in manufacturing. So those kind of cooperations are really, really important. So those are two off the top of my head. Reasons that it's important to draw companies, invest, encourage them to see North Carolina as being a great place to invest and to do business. We also have great interstate system. We have railroad. We have airports. We have, access to the coast. Our rivers aren't that great for navigation, but they're not terrible either. So, and the railroads can get us where we need to go. I hope that answers your question. It wasn't too rambly.
No, I was kind of rambling. It was a lot to unpack, but and oftentimes we want people to see, and they miss it sometimes when we talk about that intersection between education and industry, and how valuable industry is, and how our budget does need to support industry coming, because industry does support education, and after all, education is preparing the future workforce for industry. So thank you for that.
Absolutely. And I'll tack onto that support of the community college system is also incredibly important. And I'm really proud that in the budget for Alamance Community College, there's a allocation of about $3.5 million for lab equipment for the new Biotechnology Center of Excellence that's funded with the bonds that we passed in 2018 as the county. So we'll be able to get that building up and running and start preparing those workers for careers in the biotechnology sector.
And we can say something similar to that about Fayetteville Technical Community College, because also wrapped up in that budget, there was funding for our centers and some of our development at our community college, as well as Fayetteville State. So Cumberland is really excited, and we're ready to move forward with this budget.
Oh, I'm telling you, y'all made out like bandits in this budget, which is great,
I love everything that you were saying. And I think that I have a question that actually circles back to what Beth brought up. So I apologize that kind of moves away from all of what we were celebrating with what you just shared. One of the things that you mentioned, so I have a question more about longevity. One of the things that you mentioned was supporting beginning teachers and really drawing people into the profession. But one of the things that I wanted to push back a little bit, and I am a cooperating teacher, and I also am a mentor, so I work with both student teachers and beginning teachers in Wake County, and I just had a conversation with my student intern, or with my intern this year, about the removal of health plan benefits for teachers who entered the profession. I believe it was January 2020. It might have been January 2021. I can't remember the exact year. And so that's really tricky for me, because I do agree with what Beth was saying about, making sure that we're really honoring and celebrating our veteran teachers. And I'm about to enter into, I'm at year 14, so I'm about to enter into, the no man's land of seeing those raises. But then it's really tricky for me to say that as beginning teachers, we're also honoring and welcoming them into the profession. So my question is, in your work, and like you said, you've been at it for a year now, do we see bringing back those health plan benefits in retirement for those beginning teachers as a way to ensure that they're growing in the profession and they're sticking with the profession? I have concerns about what that will look like, 10, 15 years down the road of those teachers entering in, and then realizing that they're not getting those really great benefits that a lot of our teachers look forward to in retirement.
Yeah, that's a good question. I appreciate it. I appreciate you asking that. And I don't really have an easy answer for you for that. Because, what's the most expensive thing in pretty much every local government or governmental organization is healthcare, and probably private industry too. Healthcare is so expensive. And I know that the treasurer, Dale Falwell, has done a lot of work in trying to get transparency for the state health plan. And I think that there's a lot of opportunity there in understanding costs. Why does it cost so much? What are you even paying for? How do you find out? How do you price out if you got to get a knee replacement? How do you know where to go? There's a lot of transparency issues with the health plan. one would hope that if those kind of things can be addressed, then that would make the more affordable, where more people could tap into the benefit. But other than that, I'm sorry, I don't have the magic 8 ball that I can tell you what the answer is.
I appreciate it. My mom retired from North Carolina schools after 39 years, and I just had a conversation with her about her health benefits in retirement, and they're wonderful. I just want them for our beginning teachers as well.
Yeah, I would like to see that as well. I think that healthcare is one of the biggest problems that our country faces, and there's not really an easy solution to it. There's a lot of competing voices in that policy space. I think it'd be fair to say that.
Senator Galey, can you address some of the more specific budget line items that address the Leandro case?
Well, I'll tell you, I have not seen a chart that lines up Leandro and lines up the budget to say that. And I've looked at Judge Lee's order, and I think that his order was just for this is how much we want you to budget for DHHS, for the university system, and for DPI. I believe that there was a more comprehensive thing that was submitted by the governor's office representing the state in the case, but I have not seen that. So I don't have access to the whole file, and I've been digging through it, through what the court orders themselves, or the case from the Supreme Court, but I've not seen like a level of detail quite like that. So I can tell you that this budget that we just passed, the first year of the biennium is a 7% increase in spending for education, and then the second year of the biennium is a 10% increase in education spending.
So, Senator Galey, now we will have a question from a member of our virtual audience. So, Julie, please share your question.
Yes, I'm from Columbus County, actually Whiteville City Schools, and my question addresses calendar flexibility. You previously mentioned drawing in industry, and we are trying to do that here in the county with our community college, implementing some of those programs you discussed being effective by the budget, but we also need some flexibility with our calendar in getting our students prepared for testing and just in general throughout the year. We do not have very much tourism here. So what are your thoughts about adding some flexibility to the school calendar?
Well, thank you for that question. I think that, so I'm sure that you all are familiar with probably more than I am, with the calendar flexibility issue that comes, a lot of it is influenced by the tourism industry and the restaurant industry at the coast, and feeling like they need to, that it's protective to them to be able to take care of those businesses and to keep the beds full and the restaurants full at regular times during the summer. That helps. And I think it's important, in November of 2021, we don't even know what's going to happen in 2022. The restaurant and lodging industry has just been destroyed since March of 2020. And I think that anything that we do as state government with policy is going to have to be really gentle right now toward the restaurant and lodging industry. That being said, I think that what you're saying is absolutely right. As a policy matter, if you focus in on the needs of the children, that it's pretty clear that they would benefit from calendar flexibility, that shortening those breaks in the summertime and vacation times, more like a year-round school, would, I think, be helpful to them. And I personally think that, we've got enough people in the state now. If you have calendar flexibility, then we'll keep more rooms full and more restaurants, seats, tables filled, because people will be able to spread out their vacations over the course of the year, instead of everybody going in June, July, and August, and it's murder at the beach because it's so crowded and crazy. If we could spread that out. But that's advocacy or a policy discussion that I think has got to be really gentle and responsive to the unique challenges that the restaurant and lodging industry has been facing, not only because of the virus itself and then people not traveling last year, but also there are really huge problems in finding and keeping employees, which, we have been talking about that with teachers, teacher retention, written recruitment. A lot of industries are really, really struggling hugely with that issue right now. And and it's across the country.
Senator Galey, we would like to thank you so much for coming on Tar Heel Teachers at Home and having a conversation with us around a variety of educational topics. And we welcome you to return to our program to continue the dialogue.
But thank you so much for the invitation. I really enjoyed it, and I wish you all the best. And thank you so much for, your love of the children and your work in your communities. It is very much appreciated and recognized. And I just hope you all have a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.
Same to you. We would also like to thank our audience so very much for watching our program. We hope that you will engage with us and connect with us on our social media platforms. Please like our Facebook page. Please follow us on Twitter. Our handle is @TarHeelTeachers. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel. Visit our website, tarheelteachers.com. And on all of our social media platforms, please use our hashtag TarHeelTeachers so we can find all of your great comments. I'd like to thank our wonderful group of co-hosts for joining us for this conversation. Beth Bartlett-Elmore, Lauren Genesky, and Tanika Williams. And we also like to thank our virtual audience so very much for joining us. And we'd like to thank our special guest, Senator Amy Galey, for joining us as well. We look forward to seeing you next time on Tar Heel Teachers at Home.
Thank you.